Hello everybody, this is Luna calling. Luna, that is, lightly unconscious, never articulate. So here we are as episode 18, super excited to get into part 2 of Spinoza's Ethics. I thought we'd work out where we were. Where did we end up after part 1?
We were just kind of mulling about in this infinite universe of Spinoza's causal networks of causes and effects, and we were trying to understand the universe from this position of God, which I found was quite, disorienting, because it seems like Spinoza has taken completely like the reverse approach to Descartes, right? What's Spinoza's universe? Absolutely everything. What was Descartes? He tries to reconstruct the universe from this little minimal thinking subject and then building from there. But Spinoza's just chucked us in.
Yeah. Descartes starts narrow, Spinoza starts wide.
He goes, all right, infinity of infinity attributes, this is what God is. Here's the ontological framework. It's a network of causes and effects. So where are we going to now? We've done that, part 1, okay? But there's something missing, I think, in Spinoza's kind of universe that we were talking about last week. There's no people in his universe.
People yet, yeah. He not even himself. So
no.
Here we are, Luna's jumping into the second part of the ethics. And, the first thing when we're confronted with a difficult, abstruse philosophical text, and we like philosophy, but we're worried about it being incomprehensible, is just pay attention to the title and to the introductory material, because often the philosopher is going to give you some clues.
Yeah, sometimes they'll be very useful in trying to lay out exactly what it is that we want to achieve in this kind of section.
Yeah.
And so,
The title
of the nature and origin of the mind. That's good. So we've gone from the universe down to the mind.
Exactly,
Yep.
right? Mind you, he doesn't say what kind of mind yet. He's just saying mind in general,
yes.
Right? And then he says that so far I have shown in part 1 how infinite things follow in infinite ways from the nature of God. That is, they're entailed. And basically what he's referring to there are the laws of nature.
Yeah.
Right? The laws of nature as they were understood in the 17th century. Basically the laws of mechanics, right?
Yeah.
And at this point he says you've got infinite things following in infinite ways. So we've got the richness of the universe, all the wealth of the universe.
Yes.
But he says, here I will explain only those that can lead us directly to cognition of the human mind.
Okay.
Right, and of its highest blessedness.
Yeah, I feel like.
Would you like some of that, Val?
I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind being blessed a little bit. At the moment, I feel like he's going to pull a fast one on us here, though. He says he's going to be leading us to the human mind, but where is he going to be starting from? Right? He's been talking about God this entire time.
Well, yeah, he's got to narrow things down. So if you're starting out very, very wide, all of a sudden he's just picking out not just mind, but one very particular kind of mind.
Yes.
But we see that when he gets how does he do things? As always, he starts with definitions. And with some axioms as well. So axioms are like basic truths that supposedly don't depend on any presuppositions or premises themselves, but are self-evident.
They're self-evident. They are the building blocks of what you assume to be able to talk about other things, right? And I mean, this is part of his Euclidean approach, right? You have to assume some axioms. These things are true, and from there I can build up the rest of the system, right? And so this is what's really important, of course, is we need to follow, okay, what can we do from these definitions and from these axioms, right? So
but he doesn't start with the definition of the mind. That's the odd thing. He starts, like he's got 7 definitions. First definition of the body.
Bit of an odd move.
Yeah. And what is a body? A body is a mode.
Yeah.
It's not substance. It's not attribute. It's a mode.
Yeah.
And each mode, he says, expresses the essence of God in a specific and determinate manner insofar as God is considered as an extended thing.
Yes.
Right? So God is matter.
Yeah.
Right? God, remember, he always says God or nature.
Yes, exactly. God is as an extended thing is the collection of all of the things in the universe that is causally extending outwards infinitely.
Exactly.
Right? And so, and I mean, he's going to be responding to Descartes a little bit here, right? Because it sounds like he's saying, okay, I'm going to talk to you about the mind. I'm talking about body as a distinct thing, but I think we're going to get into that in a little bit. Yeah.
Second definition, he talks about essence. Now, this is one of these words which, people who haven't done much philosophy just say, what on earth are the philosophers going on about?
What are they talking about?
He's not talking about essential oils.
No.
And I think the best way to approach this is to think about Aristotle, like common garden philosophy. What's the essence of a table? Yeah. Well, it doesn't have to have 4 legs. It could have like a central pillar.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be square. It can be round like this table we've got in front of us. Yeah. But I tell you what, Val, all my tables, they must be flat. I am not having a table on a slant.
They must, because then everything's going to fall off.
That's a slope. It's not a table.
It destroys the use of the table, right?
Right. But this table, I'm perfectly happy with this table. And I don't particularly care that it's white.
No.
Right?
That's not important to the essence of the table.
Exactly.
It can have lots of other different colours and, and like you were saying, it can be different shapes, but as long as it's holding, all of our equipment up.
And not too high.
Not
too low. Not down near our ankles.
No.
Not up above our eyebrows.
It's not a coffee table,
Exactly, right?
But yes.
So Aristotle says, every single kind of thing has essential properties. Yeah. So a table must be flat and around just below waist level, more or less.
Yeah.
And it also has accidental properties.
Yes.
So this table happens to be white. It happens to have a few scratches on it. That doesn't matter, right? Yeah. And so with Aristotle, you've got this perfect hierarchy between essential properties and accidental properties.
Yes.
Now, Spinoza is a bit of an anarchist.
He is.
He doesn't like hierarchies.
No, he is going to be doing away, if we recall from part 1, essence and existence. One and the same thing.
Well, that's with God,
That is with God, yes.
But here he says, let's just talk about ordinary things.
Yeah.
And unlike Aristotle, he says, I say that to the essence of anything belongs that which, being given, the thing is necessarily posited, and being taken away, the thing is necessarily taken away.
Okay.
Yeah, curious, right?
It's a bit of an odd... Yeah, okay. Because he does use the example of the human beings, right?
Yeah.
Where he says, we can think about a collection of 20 human beings, right? I'm not jumping the gun here. Like, I'm not... I feel like you can have 20 human beings, but it does not belong to the essence of human beings that there are 20 of them.
Yeah, exactly. There is a big divide. So with God, essence and existence are one and the same thing. Yeah. Because it's part of God's essence to exist, because God is self-causing. Yes. Right? But with human beings, unfortunately for us... No. It is not essential to our nature as human beings to exist. One human being can exist or another human being can exist. Yep. One little sperm was faster than the other sperm. One particular egg was there.
Yeah. These just depend on the determinate laws of the universe in which under which their existence is conditioned, right? Okay.
Exactly.
So we have essence.
Then we have ideas. And he has a very active conception of the idea. He says... What an idea is when the mind conceives of something. It actively conceives of something because it's a thinking thing, right? Yes. And he says, I'm talking about conception because I don't want to talk about perception. Yeah. All the empiricists, like Aristotle, like Hobbes, like Locke, they basically say objects impinge upon us and we perceive them, and that's how we get an idea of the object in our mind. And Spinoza's not about that at all. He's a rationalist. He says we can independently come up with conceptions, never mind the external world.
He's not making our ideas dependent on the object out there necessarily. Human beings don't condition the objects.
Yeah. And basically what he's doing with this list of 7 definitions is giving us a list of the things he's going to be talking about in part 2. Yes. So the next thing is adequate ideas. And this is finally where truth comes into the picture.
Yes. He's going to be making a distinction between truth and falsity.
Right.
Following Descartes, but in a very kind of different way, right? So we have adequate ideas.
But it's a cagey definition, Val, because he doesn't say anything about a true idea, an adequate idea corresponding to an extrinsic object. In fact, he actually says a true idea, an adequate idea, is anyone that has all the properties or intrinsic qualities of an adequate idea without telling us what they are.
He's
going to give us a surprise later, maybe.
I feel like he's just withholding things all the time.
Yeah.
You know? But again, we're in the building blocks of the system, right?
We have to accept they're just building blocks, right?
Yeah.
So basically, I think what he's doing here is he's trying to say some adequate ideas, right, or adequate ideas don't have to have an agreement with an external object.
No.
And what he's doing by that is he's opening the door to all of those mathematical ideas that are true. So,
Yes.
The square root of -1, an imaginary the first imaginary number, doesn't correspond to any object whatsoever.
No.
But if you have the correct kind of like algebraic writing of it, it does actually exist, right?
Yes, it does have an existence without necessarily needing to be dependent or accorded with an external object out there in the world, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then he talks about duration. Duration is just lasting in time. It's just something continuing to exist.
Yeah.
Right.
Because only God is eternal, right?
Right.
But we as finite things, we have duration.
Exactly. And we have different durations.
Yes.
Sometimes we overlap, sometimes we don't.
Yeah.
Right. Then very quickly, reality and perfection, the same thing. That reminds us of Descartes' first a posteriori proof of the existence of God, whereby God is all perfect and therefore has maximum reality.
And is not lacking anything. But, just to remind our dear listeners that perfection for Spinoza is not a moral claim. It's not a claim to good, bad, evil, etc., etc. It's just perfection insofar as it is not lacking anything.
It's like intensity of existence.
Yes.
Yeah. And then finally, we get down to brass tacks with definition 7. It's particular things, right? So here he says particular things are finite. They have a determinate existence. Yeah. But, unlike many philosophers, and it's going to take until the 20th century for other philosophers to get on board with this, he's not going to claim that there's any hard and fast one level of individual things. Yeah. What he means by that is that something that counts as an individual is always the effect of a process whereby a clump of things, an aggregate of things, have been gathered together and called one individual. Right?
Yes, exactly.
Or rather, they have the effect. They have one effect, and therefore they get counted together as one individual.
Yes.
So basically, he's going to get into this when he has this whole treatise on what human bodies are.
Yeah.
But we're incredibly complex bodies.
Yes.
And they're we are hosts to thousands and millions of nasty things.
Oh yeah, I mean we contain multitudes.
Right? Yeah, and not even in a nice sense. You know, there's all kinds of bacteria in there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and basically he says it's not just at every level I want to say something's individual, at the level of bacteria, at the level of an organ, at the level of the organism as a whole. He's actually saying it depends. The unity of a thing depends on whether it has one effect.
Yes.
Right.
So again, like we were talking about last week, there's a real sense in Spinoza of a collective, right? The number of individual things, depending on the relationship between one another, can form into various bodies and act in unison and become a singular, cause that produces a singular kind of effect, even though it contains these multiplicities or these multitudes, right? There's a real kind of, you cannot just pick out individual things in Spinoza's system and isolate it from the rest of the system. It all depends on this relationality. Yeah. Okay.
And the other clear thing, what's really important is, unlike what happened to a lot of philosophy in the so-called linguistic turn after the Second World War, is that he's not saying things are individual because we name them as individual. Yes. Because he's not taking this view that it's the operation of language that actually confers unity upon things that otherwise would be blurred and disaggregated. Yeah. He's saying there is individuality out there in the world, in reality.
Yes.
But it is a function of relationships, and those are causal relationships.
Yes. All right, so we have our 7 definitions.
Then we get 5 axioms.
Now we get 5 axioms, the first of which we've already kind of talked about a little bit, So by their essence, unlike God, individual humans do not necessarily exist. We kind of already went over that a little bit. The second one, this is a nice one. Human beings think.
Do they, Val?
I don't know. Sometimes I feel like in this political climate, maybe there's a little lack of this particular attribute. But there's something democratic about it a little bit, right? Spinoza, he's saying, we are all thinking things.
Well, that's it. I think he's saying,
thoughts.
If we're human, we think.
Yeah.
Right? We don't actually know what thinking is yet for
No.
Spinoza.
We don't know what we're thinking about, but
Yeah.
there's a fact of kind of thinking. Right?
And I think this is a little bit like, Badiou, who actually says, it's one of his political claims.
Yes.
He says that it's not the case that everybody is duped by the dominant ideology.
No.
People know that they're being screwed most
Yes.
of the time,
Yeah.
and they know that things could be different.
Yes.
Right? It's just a question of power. Right?
Yes, a question of power that we're going to be getting into, I think, more concretely in part 3.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, but also insofar as we think as human beings, that means we partake in the infinite attribute of God, which is thought, right? And so this is one of the ways in which he's going from this kind of maximal size and moving down to, well, what is the human mind, right?
Well,
Just
yeah,
to
and this is a philosophy, I have to say, again, I'm going to go back to Sesame Street. This is a philosophy of cooperation. It's a philosophy of joining in, of participating, of doing your part. Because when we think, we're joining the mind, what we're later going to discover is the mind of God.
Yeah, and Spinoza is concerned with thinking about what we have in common, not differences. It's not a philosophy of pure differentiation. He's starting with this kind of unit. Well, well, I mean, maybe it is a unity in a singular substance, but there's a sense in which what joins us together is what Spinoza is trying to think about.
Yeah.
What do we all have in common?
That's the driving question,
Yep.
definitely.
Yeah.
And then here we go. Suddenly, axiom 3, we've discovered what thinking can be.
Oh,
We can think through love.
we can think
To
through
love is to think.
Yeah, to desire is to think.
Oh my God, I thought it was just doing mathematics.
No,
but-
no. There's going to be if you think he's just doing mathematics, wait till part 3. Yeah.
Gosh. So he's saying, like, any of the affects that occur in the spirit or mind, that's thinking, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm remembering, if I'm imagining, if I've got a hypothesis, if I'm like scratching an itch or whatever.
Yeah.
And then he says, whenever we do this, whenever we think, it's always transitive. That is, there's always an object of thought.
Yes.
So we're not like, floaty, just like loving without any object. We're
Yeah.
loving something,
Yes.
right?
There's an object to our thoughts. Again, not this. Again, we don't want to do a Spinoza as a hippie, universal one love kind of person. It's more concretized than that.
It's located, it's determinate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have modes of thinking, but then we are also going to be talking about bodies as well. When we sense a particular body being affected in all sorts of ways, we're constantly being acted upon.
Exactly.
We're constantly interacting with all sorts of bodies all of the time, all around us.
And I think this is when he is at his most down to earth in these opening pages of part 2, because he basically says, and he knows all of his readers are there with him, he says, we sense a certain body, i.e. our body, being affected in many ways. Like the body will not shut up.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah. It's always niggling at us in one way or another.
Yes.
And then he says, final axiom, that's all we've got, right?
That's it.
All we've got are particular things that we sense as bodies and modes of thinking.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
So
it.
we're bodies and modes of thinking, that's what the universe feels like to us.
Yeah, I feel like this is quite a bit of a rude move on Spinoza's part. He promised me the entire universe, the infinity of infinite attributes, and now what you're saying to me is that we only have access to 2 attributes, thinking and bodies, thought and extension. That's it?
Well, he said these objects of the human mind. Basically, he's not saying that's all there is. He's just saying you want to understand the human mind.
Yeah.
All we need to talk about is thinking and extension.
And extensions.
Right?
Okay.
Mind and body. That's all we need to think about.
Okay.
But what's new in what he's doing is if you want to understand the human mind, you've got to think about the body.
Yes.
That's what's innovative. That's what's radical in Spinoza.
Yes, and then we're going to get into this kind of very tricky relationship between thought and extension in a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we have our definitions, we have our axioms. So now we have a full theory of the human mind, right? We think and there's extension, right?
Right.
That's perfect.
So we've got our bases. And I just wanted to say, like, this is another thing for when we're confronting a difficult text, one of the things that we can do in philosophy is accept that we're not going to understand it on the first reading.
Absolutely not. I've never understood a single philosophical text on the first reading whatsoever. Like, how arrogant do you have to be to say, I'm going to understand this first blush, no worries.
Yeah. But what you can understand,
Yes.
or what you can try and start doing for yourself is give yourself a few landmarks.
Yeah.
So you can often, the philosopher will tell you what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Or they will tell you what they think they've managed to do.
Yeah.
And so there'll be these little hooks, these little transition sentences. And so what you can do is you can map out the subsections and sections of a philosophical text.
Yeah.
And say to yourself, okay, I don't know exactly how Spinoza explains what this mind of God is.
Yeah.
But I do know that he's banging on about it from propositions 1 through 9.
Yeah, so
right?
you can draw yourself out a little roadmap, and I mean Spinoza's Ethics is one of those texts that allows you to do that in a really kind of clear way.
Yeah.
Well, not super clear, but like because of the way that he relates the different propositions, and he goes, look at this definition. If you want to follow back on this, or we refer to different parts of the book, the Ethics does lend itself to creating these kinds of roadmaps, right? So when we're reading part 2, we can say, okay, what's the mind of God? This is the question. We can identify what the question is that he's going to be trying to answer. And we can kind of go, I reckon that's roughly proposition 1 to 9.
Yeah. And then he moves to what is a human mind.
Yeah.
Propositions 10 to 13.
Yeah. And then you go, well, how do bodies interact? What's the human body? And then you go, look at some of the postulates. You go up to proposition 13, some of the axioms,
Yeah. And then finally, so that's where he actually has what's called his mini treatise of physics.
Oh, yeah.
So he actually goes into the laws of equal and opposite reactions
Rest
for every action, rest and motion,
Yep.
inertia, that kind of thing. And once he's laid out the general rules of all bodies, right, then he gets into what is specific and odd about human bodies.
Yes.
And that's very, very important because basically you're going to get this image of the human body as plastic and infinitely adaptable. And it kind of anticipates Marx much later on the generic being of human beings.
Ah, yes, in the 1844 manuscripts.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Gattungswesen. Then what does he do? He basically says, okay, so we've got a human mind, we've got a human body.
Yeah.
What is the first thing that starts at the kind of base level of cognition?
Yeah.
Well, we form images of our environments
Yeah.
through events, and we form habits.
Yeah. And also, because of our embeddedness in our environment, a lot of our habits that we form or the images that we have from our environment are inherited, right? They're inherited from the culture or the society from which you grew up in, right? And it's like these are the kind of things, these are the kind of ways in which how we experience the world is informed by our cultural milieu, or however you would like to put it.
Yeah, I mean, it's very down to earth. Here he's talking about how our minds start to form patterns and how we associate, say, the morning. We always see Paul in the morning.
Yes.
And then how do we know it's the evening? Well, we always see Peter in the evening. And so it's those two events, seeing Paul and seeing Peter, that give us a sense of the duration of a day.
Yeah.
Yeah, mind you, he's talking about, very small children.
Yeah.
And basically propositions 14 through 22, it's just about habits.
Yeah. Habit forming, how do we form the images of our environments? But then, he doesn't stop there. In the next set of propositions from 23 to 36, he starts talking to us about confused and mutilated ideas.
That sounds nasty.
It is quite nasty. But this is where he's going to start, forming his idea. He's going to start putting forward his theory of true and false, right? A confused and mutilated idea is when we have a mistaken idea about the world in which we live. Right?
Yeah, well, I'd like to say that coming out of his theory of habits is a theory of bad habits, right? But in the end, he's not that moralistic about us. He just says that it's absolutely predictable and inevitable that our ideas at the level of our imagination are confused, which means they're amalgams. We amalgamate two separate things. And or they're mutilated, which means they're missing things. So we don't have a complete picture of something. And he says this is entirely natural. This is how our organism negotiates the environment.
Yeah, absolutely. This is totally... Yeah, again, he's not being moralistic about it. It's just... He's just speaking to the fact that a lot of the time we go about the world and we don't really interrogate how it works. Yeah. This goes back to my constant struggle to understand what the wind is. I could very easily... look up how that actually functions, but I go about the world of my confused, mutilated ideas because I haven't gone and investigated.
Well, this is like my endless quest to get a decent lunch as well. And then finally, so you think, we're all doomed. We're just like stumbling around with our mutilated and confused ideas. But he holds out a beacon of hope, a light on the hill. Yeah. There is true knowledge. So
okay.
There you go. Yeah. Propositions 37 to 47. Okay. And remember, he said in the appendix to part 1, if it wasn't for the invention of mathematics, humans would be arguing about religion and killing each other all the way through history. Exactly. So mathematics did get invented. True ideas are possible. Yep. And here's where he talks about what he calls common notions and adequate ideas.
Yes. And then he's going to finish off part 2 with why there's no such thing as free will.
That's outrageous, Val.
This is always a scandalous one. He's trying to tell me that I am not the author of all of my actions and all of my thoughts and the way in which my body exists in the world. Is he trying to tell me that I don't get to freely decide between, the strawberry cupcake and, the pain au chocolat?
The strawberry cupcake chose you.
Yeah, I know.
Val. It's working through you, that all those sugar highs.
Yes.
So and that's just the last 2 propositions, 48 and 49. Yeah. So, you can divide up a text like this in all kinds of different ways.
Yes.
And so there's no one right way to do it. And also, this being Spinoza, he's got his geometrical method.
Yes.
So each proposition is supposed to follow from previous propositions. Yeah. And he'll show that in the demonstrations.
And that's absolutely one of the ways in which you can read Spinoza, is precisely going, well, does this actually follow from this previous... Does this follow from this axiom, or does this follow from this definition? Is this a sound proposition? So you can always be critically engaging. Whenever you're reading a text and you go, oh, that doesn't sound quite right, I feel like there's something a bit amiss, you can go back and check it and see how it actually fits together.
Well, I think that this is one of the key things, is that when it comes to reading the ethics, is that you can go backwards. Like some of the propositions, some of the axioms and definitions, you're not going to understand them and their consequences until you see how they're used in demonstrations later on. Yeah. Right? So there's a kind of a looping backwards as you read the ethics, whereby you go, oh, that's how he's used, that's why he put that axiom in place. Yeah. Because then it allows him to demonstrate this particular idea.
And then, and then it builds up as well. And this is kind of what is so gorgeous about the architecture of this book. It's not only just contained within a part, but it's also how each part functions as a whole in the book. It's the movement from part 1 to part 5. But we're in part 2, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. We want to know the mind of God.
What is the mind of God, Val? What is this? It sounds like Ozymandias in The Watchmen. Is it a man with a beard floating up there in the clouds, pondering about whether he's going to send you, Val, to heaven or hell at the last judgment?
Well, I feel like for Spinoza, this would be precisely a confused and mutilated idea that we've constructed of God. God is author, predetermined plan. God dishes out punishments, is always watching you for your sins, etc., etc. For Spinoza, he's not having any of this, right? I think the easiest way to, what I'm going to say sounds complicated, but the mind of God is just the infinite attribute of thought, the infinity of all things that are possible, that we can possibly think of, right?
But in the right way.
But in the right way. We have to do this in the correct way.
Yeah. So it seems to me, when I've been trying to make sense of this for a while now with students, basically what he's saying is there's a kind of ideal horizon for all scientific inquiry.
Yes.
Which basically states that sooner or later, if the right experiments are carried out or the right deductions are carried out, then we will arrive at a complete scientific understanding of each part of the universe. Like, it's possible. Nothing is opaque. There's nothing that is a permanent mystery. Nothing that will be eternally unknowable for us.
Yes.
If we think things through, if we use the right method, we will be able to understand via causal explanation the nature of all phenomena.
Yeah, and this is kind of the epistemology of Spinoza's entire system, right? It's kind of And also, I suppose one of the ethical kind of injunctions is to go out and investigate. You know, all of these things appear mysterious to us. This universe is so vast and so big, you know, and we're just tiny little finite things. But through this process of investigation conducted in the correct way, investigating the determinate laws of the universe and how it's ordered and structured, we can move out of this realm of confused and mutilated ideas, and we can know.
Yeah.
We can know things about the universe, right?
But this is the crazy thing about this is it's not just like a promise. It's not just like a potential that science has.
No.
Right? It's not like some kind of regulative idea.
No.
What Kant talks about like 2 centuries later, like 1 century later, we have to have this idea that there's a unity of science that we're driving towards with our scientific progress.
No.
He's going to run one of his metaphysical arguments for this. Basically, he's saying the mind of God, infinite knowledge of the nature of every single physical thing in the universe, already exists.
Yes.
It's out there in a certain sense.
It's already here.
Yeah. And how does he set this up? Well, he's going to go into this theory of attributes.
Yes.
That he just announced in part 1. And now he's going to put it to work, this theory of attributes.
Yes. So, I mean, this is the first kind of proposition, right? He says God is a thinking thing.
Okay. Right? I'll give you that.
Because God is a thinking thing. Yep. God contains all of these infinity of infinite thoughts, etc., etc. And then that follows very cleanly into the second proposition. God is an extended thing. So again...
Yeah, but what does that mean, God's an extended thing?
It means God is nature. Weren't you paying attention in part 1, Ol?
Yeah, but extended is like, having height, breadth, and depth.
Yeah, well, I mean...
Are you saying God's got a shape?
It's an infinite shape. I don't know what it looks like.
It's like one of those infinite polygons that Descartes was talking about in Meditation 6.
It's it exceeds the limits of our puny human minds, of which we are only a finite part of this infinite. But he's going back over part 1, right?
Yeah.
God is a thinking thing because God possesses the attribute of thought, because God has every single attribute. God also has to be extension, because need I remind you all, God would not be perfect if God was lacking one of these attributes for Spinoza. So God has to be everything that is in the material world that extends out.
I've got it. You know what it is?
Yeah.
It's like different planes of existence.
Yes.
Right? So God exists on the plane of thought.
Yes.
And thinks infinitely.
Yeah.
And at the same time, God exists on the plane of extension. And kind of spreads infinitely as well. Right? And in fact, like there's this nice thing here where he says, because God is thought, there's an idea of everything that exists in thought.
Yes.
Right? So there's a kind of a meta thought, an all-inclusive thought.
Oh.
Yeah. So he's basically saying that it's like imagine that your mind was an abacus. And each of those little beads that you could slot across was an individual thought, right? And you're thinking about your dinner and your lunch and your breakfast.
Yeah.
Then you can have the thought of, the 3 meals that I'm going to have today, right? And that's the meta thought that includes the little thoughts.
Okay.
So we have like baby thoughts, and then we have the mother thoughts.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I suppose this is kind of one of the ways that we can articulate the same thing in slightly different terms, where you go, we are a finite collection of thoughts as human beings, and then God is the infinite thought. So this is how we participate as finite things in the infinity of God. Yeah. Yeah.
And he also says that God acts all the time. So what is God's action? It's the infinite causal unfolding of nature.
Yeah, God is what just happens.
Trees are growing. Trees are going. Acorns are sprouting into saplings, right? Yeah. And he says, as God acts, God also has the ideas of these actions.
Yes.
So basically what he's saying, for every physical process that occurs on the plane of extension, there is also the idea of that process in all of its details.
Which means that we can know about this process, right?
Right. So everything that exists, every process that exists, also has this adequate idea of its existence that exists at the level of the mind of God.
Yeah.
It's like a kind of infinite archive.
Yeah.
Right? An archival machine.
Yes.
Right?
God is an archive machine. Okay.
Yeah, a kind of recording machine, as
I feel like
Deleuze would say.
Yes, I was going to say, I feel like you're being quite Deleuzian this week.
Yeah, I don't know what's come over me. Yeah. All right,
Okay.
and then the next thing that he says is that, and I think this is super important in Proposition 5,
Yeah.
is that you remember how in, again, that first proof for the existence of God in Descartes in Meditation 3, he talks about the causality behind ideas. Like, what is the cause that brings an idea into my mind?
Yes.
And here he says, ideas can only be caused by other ideas.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? And they're not caused by objects or things. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
And there, he's going against Aristotle.
Yep.
He's going against Hobbes in his own time.
Yep.
He's going against Locke, all the empiricists, because all the empiricists basically say the only reason you've got an idea in your head is because you bumped into something real in the world.
Yeah.
And that made you think, oh my God, there's actually a column in the middle of the room. Why did I bump into it? Right?
All your ideas are caused by the object.
Yeah.
Right?
And Spinoza says, no.
No.
Right?
Yes.
Ideas are only caused by other ideas.
Yeah.
Right, because you had the idea of the column, because you actually had the idea of something hard,
Yes.
right, and something slightly smooth and rounded, right?
Yep.
And then he also says bodies are only ever caused by other bodies,
Yes.
right, and bodily movements as well,
Yeah.
right?
But it seems like,
So I see you rubbing your chin there.
well,
Val.
yeah, because what I'm concerned with is that Spinoza is going back to some Cartesian dualism. You know, it seems like, especially the way that you just described it all, it sounds like, you know, there's a plane of ideas, there's a plane of the physical realm. We're not quite sure how it interacts yet. I feel like, you know.
But he knows his Descartes, Val. He
does.
knows that Descartes gets into trouble with Elizabeth, right?
Yes.
So he just evacuates that entire problem.
He does,
right?
yes.
So when you were rubbing your chin, right, was it because you were puzzled in your mind? No, it wasn't,
No.
right? It was because a muscle pulled in your bicep,
Yep.
because your fingers had a certain, capability or whatever.
I was disturbed by the things that you were saying.
That's right. But you were disturbed physically as
was
well as
physically.
mentally.
Yes.
You're completely disturbed.
On every plane of existence, I am disturbed. Yes.
Yeah, and this leads up to one of the most famous, quotable quotes. One of the most famous theses that Spinoza has in Part 2 of the Ethics.
Yeah.
Is what people refer to as the parallelism of the attributes.
Yes, which is another. Yeah, this is kind of one thing that I was worried about, because it seems like we have two parallel planes of existence. You know, how is Spinoza possibly going to make them interact in the way to get out of the Cartesian problem, right?
Well, he's going to he's going to claim that everything exists on all the different attributes.
Yes.
Right? So something that is occurring in your mind at the very same time is occurring on the physical plane as well.
Yes.
Right? And so all of us who are into the neurosciences and brain chemistry are perfectly happy here.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think this is called, in the contemporary philosophy of mind, something like the dual language theory. Like we've got physical talk, and then we've also got mental talk. And somehow the task for neuroscience is to translate in between the mental talk and the physical talk.
Yeah.
But Spinoza basically says, well, fine, you can translate, but there's no causality. So your thinking is all happening at the mental plane. It's not caused by what's happening on the physical level.
Yeah. Cause
and effect is always internal to an attribute.
Yes. And so this is what leads him to this proposition 7, right? The order and connection of ideas is the same as the order and connection of things, right? So these are the two planes. Things being bodies in this case, ideas being thought, right? Same order, same connection, right? There has to be a causal relation, yeah?
I like to think about this in terms of a teacher breaking up a playground fight.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
So basically, you come across, unfortunately, these can be any kids, right? One of them, all you can see is halfway through the fight, you've got there a little bit late, right?
Yeah.
Old school teachers would say, who started this?
Classic, yeah.
Right? Classic question. Yeah. And you'll get two different answers.
Exactly.
He started it, she started it.
Two different explanations of the cause of the fight.
Right. And if you are a fair teacher with infinite patience, you want to get to the bottom of things and work out what actually was the trigger.
Yes.
Was it an insult? Was it a stolen toy?
Who said what? Yep.
Who first pushed, like who actually passed to physical violence the first moment, right? And basically what you're doing is you're trying to get to an ordered causal explanation of the fight.
Yes.
Right? What was the first, who landed the first punch?
Yes.
Put it that way, right?
Yes, and what led up to the first punch actually occurring.
Right.
Yeah.
So your account of the fight
Yes.
is going to have an order and connection of ideas.
Yeah, precisely by investigating the causes and the effects.
Yeah.
Right.
So Mary took a right hook
Yeah.
to Paul's jaw.
Yeah.
Right? So that's an order and connection of ideas.
Yeah.
And that will be the same,
Yeah.
right, in the mind of God. It's going to be the same as the order and connection of actual events and things in the physical universe,
Yeah.
which was Mary's fist slicing through the air in a beautiful parabola and connecting with Paul's jaw.
And you're telling me all of this is part of God and nature.
Well, it's the unfolding of causally necessary laws.
Yeah, God
right?
is just what happens.
You know, Paul's been bugging Mary for a fair time now.
God is there in Mary's right hook.
Yeah. Well, Paul was asking for it. Yeah. So basically, ideas have an order
Yes.
in a causal explanation.
Yeah.
Right? If I say Mary hit Paul, that's a basic order.
Yes.
Right? It's very different to Paul hit Mary.
Completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is actually this idea of connection, by the way, this is something that Vito Morfino that we interviewed recently.
Yes.
This is something that he's done a lot of work on.
Yes.
Like he's fascinated by this idea of connection, connexio in Latin, and what it involves in terms of entailments and involvements.
Yes.
And what it, Spinoza often says something follows from something else.
Yeah.
In the English translation. So this is each of these great like Spinozist commentators like focus on one thing that really strikes them.
And I mean, but one thing that I should also point to here with this kind of seeming parallelism, we're talking about it as different planes of existence. It seems like we haven't really clearly articulated what the relationship is to them yet. And hopefully Spinoza is going to give us a clearer explanation as we go on. But if I can think back to the first part, thought and extension are the expression of one substance. So I've already answered one of my own concerns where I said, it sounds like Spinoza's doing a substance dualism. It's not that thought is expressing the nature of one substance over here and the expression of extension over there is a different substance. Mm-hmm. For Spinoza, they're different expressions of the one substance, but they're running in parallel. So that's another really kind of tricky one to wrap your head around, but
it certainly is. It's very difficult to understand, but I think it's quite fascinating because he actually says somewhere a mode of extension, right? Yes. So this table, one of us, any human body, right? That hat over there, a mode of extension and the idea of that mode. Yeah. Right? He's not saying the false idea. No. I think he's saying the adequate idea, right? The idea of that mode is one and the same thing, but expressed in two ways. Yes. So what he's holding out here against all relativism and all like social constructivism or whatever is that there is such a thing as a true idea of a body. Yes. Right? Everything in a body can be captured in an idea because the body itself is expressed both as idea and as extension.
Yeah, I mean, he says that right at the beginning of part one, if I'm not mistaken, where it's like we can have true ideas, and a true idea is an idea which is in accordance with the object it is the idea of, or the body it is the idea of.
Let's talk about circles, Val.
Again, you with your bloody shapes. All right.
Body shapes? I just want to talk about
bloody shapes.
Circular Humpty Dumpty. So there's this fantastic.
They never said anywhere that Humpty Dumpty was an egg. I should point that out.
All the king's horses and all the king's men
couldn't put Humpty back together again. But who says that he's an egg? There's nowhere in any part of the song we all depict.
He's not an egg. He's Charles I, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, but he's depicted as an egg, right?
Okay.
Anyway, so I'll let you go on with your circles.
All right. So there's this fantastic citation, this passage in the Scholium too. Oh, that's another point I wanted to say. Yeah. For all those struggling with Spinoza, he's given us the dumbed down version of Spinoza, like Spinoza for idiots, right? You know, all those books at the moment, you know, Heidegger for idiots or whatever, like in the Scholia. So the Scholium are written in a different style.
Yes.
He's basically more everyday language for him.
Yeah.
Right? The lens grinder.
Yeah.
So in the Scholium to Proposition 7, he says, for example, a circle existing in nature.
Yes.
What do you want to pick? A sunflower? Like,
oh, and Humpty Dumpty. No, yeah. Let's go. Let's go. The Eye of Paris.
Okay.
Yeah.
The what?
The eye. The big.
The Ferris wheel.
Ferris wheel.
Oh yeah. Okay. Ferris wheel. That's a circle existing in nature.
Yeah.
And the idea, which is also in God, of an existing circle, is one and the same thing, explained through different attributes.
Yeah.
God has an idea of that Ferris wheel.
Yes.
Right? And he says, therefore, whether we conceive nature under the attribute of extension or under the attribute of thought, we will find one and the same order or one and the same connection of causes.
Yeah.
That is to say, we will find that the same things follow one another.
Perfect. I love that. It's such an elegant little example. It's like the same thing expressed in two different ways.
Yeah. It's there as body. Yeah. All the details that you can find in the body also exist at the level of the idea.
Yeah.
But it's not because somebody's like spent a lot of time trying to adjust their idea with regard to an outside reality. Yeah. It's because the same thing already at the origin expressed itself in these two different ways as both idea and as body.
Yeah. And I mean, we can have different, and I mean, maybe this is my own faulty kind of explanation for this, but my idea of the Eye of Paris is not exactly the same thing as the object out there on the Seine, right?
Yeah.
But they're expressing the same object. They're expressing the same thing, but my thought is not exactly the same thing as an object, right? To go...
Yeah. But then there's going to be a spanner thrown into the works, you know, and because Spinoza, he's a great philosopher, he anticipates all adversaries and all objections. And there's a great one here which says, what about fictional ideas?
Yeah.
How can a fictional idea, like, let's say, what's a fictional idea? Have you got one in your head?
What's the classic one? The classic one's the unicorn.
Right, fictional unicorn, right? Yeah. And somebody's going to say, show us the real unicorn. You've got an idea in your head of a unicorn, pointing the horn on the horse's like nose or forehead, whatever the hell it is. Where's the real one? Yeah. You know, you're just going to like chop some poor rhinoceros, or deer's antler off and stick it onto some poor unsuspecting horse, but that's not a unicorn. Yeah. So he's going to. This is where things are going to get tricky. Yeah. And I think that, you know, some of us have come from like psychoanalysis and specifically Freud and Lacan towards Spinoza. And this is one of the things that it's not immediately obvious finding it in Spinoza is the whole question of fantasy and of fiction. Yes. Right. And here in Propositions 9 and 10, he does start to talk about this question of fictional ideas.
Is he going to be putting fictional ideas on the side of maybe these confused and mutilated ideas, like these ideas that we form of the world that don't actually accord with with the adequate idea? You know,
Well, I think that would be a wrong turn, and I think I would just like to protest on the behalf of all novelists ever and all playwrights and poets. That a fictional idea is very different to an inadequate or mutilated or confused idea. Yes. In fact, Cervantes wrote Don Quixote, Don Quixote, that was written in this century. Yeah. And there you have somebody who has very clear, logically intricate and involved ideas that construct for himself an entire quest, right? And you can say they don't correspond to a certain reality, but at the same time, they have effects in the world. I mean, I think we could argue about Don Quixote from a Spinozist point of view.
So it must be. So what is Spinoza's kind of solution to this challenge of fictional ideas? Right? Is it going to have to do with something about the location of where these ideas are? Fiction,
there's some. So he's got a few things to play with and I think we're going to have to come to this maybe in the next episode because it's a complicated one. But basically, he's got human minds. And he's got the mind of God. Yes. And they're not quite the same thing. No. And we know that we already know that sometimes humans have inadequate ideas. Yes. In fact, a lot of the time we've got mutilated or confused ideas. Whereas the mind of God is packed full of adequate ideas.
Packed full of every idea that could possibly exist, right?
Yeah, and Val, sometimes you have had an adequate idea.
They're few and far between, but I feel
But
like
they've played a crucial role in your existence till now. Right? You thought you could make a go of it in a completely different city,
yeah,
and you have.
yeah, thought I could go and do a PhD, and then I did. That was definitely at the beginning. It appeared as a confused and mutilated idea. Why in God's name would you subject yourself to 4 years of that?
Yeah.
But then
It came out and it was perfect.
It was actually the 1 year anniversary yesterday of submitting it, so that was a nice little.
That deserves at least a cupcake.
Yes, a strawberry one. One that I freely decide on.
There you go. I think strawberry cupcakes freely decided on. What better place to say goodbye?
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us.
Nice to have you on board again.
And we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.